So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that you need to avoid wasting your opportunity. You've spent time, you've spent effort, and you've spent resources on getting yourself an interested party to actually work with. Now, the last thing that you want to do is blow it when you actually have the meeting and you miss out on converting the sale. So the first thing, or the first tip that I have for you, is to know your outcome or result. So if you're going to ring somebody, is your outcome to get a sale on the phone, or do you want to have a meeting? Or do you want to actually, create an invitation for them to attend an event of some sort? Or is there something that the idea is that you know your outcome of result every step of the way. So if it goes phone to appointment and then appointment to proposal and then proposal to close or contract, then know what it is that you want your outcome to be or your result to be from every step of the way. The next thing that I have to say is if you're having a meeting or if you're having a telephone conversation with somebody, then please, 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 I'm willing to beg, please ask quality questions. And I think Nathaniel raised a point before where he said that, a lot of the information about people and their companies and organizations is available online. So I can't think of anything more disrespectful than someone ringing me up and asking me questions about my business. Tell me about your business. How long have you been in business? Asking me questions about the coaching process, or tell me a little bit more about what your excitement is in being in this field. Those are the types of things that they can find online about me. And so the quality questions that I'd like to be asked is to get the questions that are going to help me to identify that this person can help me solve my problem. See, people misunderstand the purpose of asking questions. The purpose of asking questions is to establish the need, not your need, the need of the client. And once you have the need, you'll be able to fill it. So a lot of the time, 80% of people have actually already made the decision to buy the item. It's just about whether or not they're going to buy it from you. And one of the reasons that they'll buy from you is they get that you get them. And part of the process of you being able to have them understand that you do get them, that you do understand their problem, is for you asking really good quality questions. Some of the questions that I like to ask are open-ended questions. Rather than leading a person to the outcome that you have previously determined, it's much more efficient and effective to ask open-ended questions. For example, how did you decide that now was the right time to X? Or what motivated you to look at this as a solution? Or what was it that actually got you excited about going down this pathway, whatever your product or service is? So please, please ask quality questions. And then the most important thing is you want to actually listen to the outcomes, because you see, if you end up like Bob, the photocopier man, you really, really, really don't want to lose the sale based on the fact that you didn't listen. So the next thing is to have internal and external awareness, which also relates to Bob, believe it or not, because he was totally directed at the fact that he was focused on getting an outcome that was his linear process or in his compendium. So all he was interested in was he had an idea, and he wanted to go step 1, 2, 3 in his sales process, and it didn't actually matter what I had to say that day. I may as well have not been there, because he was determined to follow his sales process from start to finish, regardless of what was going on outside of him. So I think the most important thing is to have external awareness, because your client will actually determine a little bit where the sales process goes. And this is probably a little bit, Nathaniel, about what happens with salespeople a lot of the time that you mentioned before, about the external awareness and just being completely lost in terms of what the clients actually want and how we can connect with them. So having that external awareness is rather important. What do I mean by internal awareness? I mean that confidence that you have. Do you have all the information that you need to have in order to get the outcome? And if you have all of that information, then there should be a certain amount of internal confidence that goes with that, and how you can manage that in your body language and your communication. Simple things like having an authoritative tonality in the way that you deliver your message, as opposed to a questioning tonality, will actually change the way that someone actually interprets your confidence. And that really comes from your beliefs inside. The next thing is to know your objection responses. So recently I worked with a client who had a downturn in their sales, and they couldn't quite work out what was going wrong, and so they had about 15% downturn in their sales process. And what was happening was they really had a bit of growth, and they brought on a couple of new salespeople, and as part of that process, the new salespeople weren't really, because they were new kids on the block, they weren't really familiar with the idea of all of the objection responses that could possibly be there. And so the next thing that they had was they actually had a problem with the objections, in that they were actually arguing or being perceived to be arguing with their clients when they had an objection. So one of the things that we did was we actually rolled out a strategy in terms of the way that they learnt their objections and their objection responses, and then gave them a strategy. Now, I don't know about you, but if I say that I've got a problem with something and then somebody says, no, it's not a problem, that to me is an argument. Because what you're saying is you're decreasing the trust with me, and what you're doing is you're putting the person in a situation where it looks like you're arguing with me and that I don't have any authority in what I'm trying to say. So one of the ways that we perceive objections is that, somehow that's an objection. But in my mind, the mindset on an objection is it's a cry for more information. It's got nothing to do with a rejection. It's actually got to do with the fact that I obviously didn't build enough value in what I was proposing to you that you have a question about whether or not it can really work for you. So my strategy for handling objections is to really listen to the information that the client is presenting, and actually to ask questions that you clarify the objection, that you know that you're handling the objection appropriately for what the client's actually giving you an objection for. And one of my favorite examples of this is a client of mine who was very excited. This was about 6 years ago. He was very excited about winning his biggest deal that he'd ever had in his business. And the guy that he was dealing with signed off on the proposal. It was a $56,000 proposal. And he was in small business, so it was a really big proposal for him. He was pretty chuffed at the idea that they'd given the go-ahead. And they said, look, everything's right to go. We've got the contract organised, etc. But we really don't want to get started for another 2 months because our GM is stuck in Germany for a couple of months, and he wants to be involved in the sign-off of this deal and also in the way that we roll it out. So he's requested that we delay the start date for 2 months. Now, when this information came through to my client, he didn't consult me before he actually answered this, and he saw this objection as being something to do with the price on the proposal. And so because that was part of his own itty-bitty-shitty committee, part of his own little objections that he had about money and whether or not people could afford to do business with him, in his mind, 56K was a lot of money. And so in his mind, he started to translate that this must be a money objection, because why are they not wanting to start right now? And so he answered the client and said, well, if we make it 25K, do you think that you'll be able to get started now? Now, not only was this one of the most silly things he'd ever done in his career, he was devastated because it didn't change the outcome. So I think one of the most important takeaways with that is that you actually perceive the objections for what they are, rather than, that you understand what the objections are for what they are in the client's mind, not necessarily what you imagine them to be. So when we listen to the objection and we fully understand it, then the idea is to respond with the agreement frame. This is where we acknowledge the objection and we say, okay, I can appreciate where you're coming from, I can see your point, and then we deliver a response that actually links them back to the need of what it was that they actually had interest, or how we were solving their problem to begin with. So it's really important to know your objection responses. Now, after we presented that information to the team that were having the downturn, these guys actually increased the closing ratio across the board by 53% in just 1 week. So that's 1 working week of 5 days. That percentage went right up just as a result of the way that they changed the way they handled objections just in the delivery. And the most important thing about avoiding wasting your opportunity is to link the value to the client's value, not yours. Remember that your model of the world is your model of the world, and what you find value in doesn't necessarily mean that it's what your clients find value in. And knowing what that is comes from the quality of the questions that you ask and how you link that to your product or service.
The other thing that I've come across, which you may or may not have noticed, is a lot of the time clients will, or prospects I should say, give an objection when it's not necessarily the actual true objection. So an example of that might be they say it's price, but quite often when you drill down to it, it's not really doesn't really come down to that actually isn't the objection that they have. It may be trust or not seeing the value, or all of a sudden their circumstances have changed and for some reason they don't feel comfortable telling you what the real objection is. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it all the time with clients. Thankfully, most of my clients consult with me. Excuse me. Thankfully, most of my clients consult with me before they go and make decisions like that to answer an objection the way my client did. Unfortunately, what his response did by making an assumption about what the objection was, not only did he not get the start date any quicker, what he did was he actually decreased the trust from his client because his client was actually able to see that he had such a huge margin in it. And, while we're all in business, we certainly, most people are looking for the best deal possible, and what that did was it showed him that he doesn't need to take any of his proposals in the future seriously without haggling for price, which also decreased the trust of the ongoing relationship as well. So you're absolutely right, Nathaniel. A lot of people make incorrect assumptions about what an objection really is, and it's a shame because there's really great business owners and really passionate people in business that just sell themselves short all the time because they're not asking really great questions. Which kind of leads us to our next point, which is, value is not a discount. Please, 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 you invested a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort in becoming the authority in the field that you're in. And one of the worst things that you can do to lessen your authority in your field and in your business is to actually start discounting your prices. I see it time and time again where people think that a solution to getting more business is to start discounting. In fact, we worked with a hairdresser a number of years ago, and she got into business because she was a technician. Originally, she worked for somebody. She wasn't getting paid enough, and so she thought, hey, it's a great idea. I'm going to start a business. And she goes off and she doesn't realize all of the money that's involved in getting it to start up and all of the unseen costs that employees really don't understand about being in small business. So she had marketing time, she had accounting time, she had cleaning, ordering, stock take, accounting, managing BAS statements, actually, getting clients in the door. And then on top of that was doing the actual hairdressing. And we worked out all of the time that she was spending on her business in terms of, actually working and how much money she was actually making. And it turned out that her hourly rate was $1.47 per hour. And I think that a lot of the time people in those situations where they figure that some business is better than no business, they start to discount as a strategy. So I think that it's really important that you look at the value proposition, and people are making investments rather than spending money on you. And it's about being able to connect that investment in terms of what they get back in return. And one of the examples that I like to use, and I think you've seen this before, Nathaniel, when you visited us for Confident Closing, is I often say, if I give you, if you give me a $10 note and I give you 100 back, is that a good investment? And people often say, yes, and that's a good investment because, I just got $90 more than I had before. And what we talk about is a contrast frame in the sense that people, particularly if you invest in business-to-business services, one of the things that you'll probably do is you'll actually offset the cost that you are to your client by providing value to them in some way. So if you're an accountant, you're looking to add value so that they're not getting their head buried in numbers. Or, if you're a bookkeeper, they're not doing data entry. Or if you're a virtual assistant or an admin service, then, you're freeing up the opportunity costs that the person has to run their business and to manage their team or whatever that may be. So it's always more important to add more value rather than to discount your prices and to actually highlight that value to the client. Often people will have problems and your product or service will solve that problem. But the thing is we've got business owners and salespeople out there going out there and offering Band-Aids to people who don't know that they're bleeding. Now, what do I mean by that? If I come up to you on the street and I suddenly hand you a Band-Aid or a plastic cast or what have you, you look at me and you say, what's that for? But if I point out to you that there's a paper cut, or that, you may have nicked your finger or something like that, and that you're bleeding, then me handing you a Band-Aid after highlighting that to you, it looks like a valuable proposition. Whereas if I just come up to you on the street and start trying to hand you a Band-Aid and you have no idea why, then you're not necessarily linking the connection between your problem being solved by my offering. And I know it's a bit of a crude metaphor or a crude story, but I think it's really important, because there's a lot of people out there that are going to networking events, or they're closing leads that are real leads, or they're trying to close leads that are real prospects by vomiting information on people who don't see the connection between the information and how it helps them. So what is value? The value is what solves my problem. And what I'm looking for from you as a prospect is, how can you help me take action? So remember, as easy and as simple as 1, 2, 3. What do I need to do in order to solve my problem, and how can you make it as seamless and as effortless for me as possible? Now, whether that's in your admin system, or whether that's explaining to me the process of getting started and how easy you can make it for me, all of those things will actually build value in my eyes in terms of solving my problem when I am your prospect. Linking the value to your questions, responses. So when you ask questions of your clients, I want you to really pay close attention to what are some of the keywords that they use. Where is the emotion on the words that they're using? Is there markers? And can you then link that problem that you're solving to the question responses? I'm a big fan. This is my number one tip. I've been along to meetings with prospects and with clients and with people that I've helped through the sales process. And one of the things that I see time and time again is there are people that are not taking notes during meetings. Your brain is processing so much information, and there's so much to take in. One of the most important things that I can share with you ever is to make sure that you take good quality notes about what's happening in your appointment, so that you can go back to it later in the meeting and actually link the value to the need. Please, I'm begging you, don't try and close your prospect at the first sign of a problem. There are often surface layers to problems, and then much deeper levels of problems, and they come out of the quality of the questions that you ask your clients. Some of the things that you can ask your client is who's been helping them with this before, and what did they like about that? Or what were the major challenges in the way that that person was servicing them? And that will give you the information about what's going wrong. One of the things about questions as well that I neglected to mention before is, please don't disrespect your audience by asking them about how much money they want to spend. I think that in today's business society, people are savvy, and they know that when you're asking them the budget question, they're always going to give you less than what they have to spend, because they're clever at bargaining. So ask some questions about their clients and what kind of revenue they're making from those clients, and then you'll get an idea about how you can contrast frame your investment in terms of what that means to them for their business. And please add value by adding extra services or something more that you can do as a bonus that will serve as extra value to the client, rather than discounting services. Remember that it's actually not about you. It's actually about them. Think about it from the point of view of firing your itty-bitty shitty committee. What's the crap that you tell yourself when you walk into an appointment? Is there something that's stopping you from believing that you are magnificent at what you do, and that people can believe everything that you say about your product and service? And if the answer to that question is no, then you really should start to have a look about, for what purpose are those things getting in the way? And also to think about, what is your belief about your product? What is your belief about your worth? And what is your belief about the price that you're asking for people? Odds are, if you think your product is too expensive, then that's the image you're going to project to your clients. And what do you think about salespeople? Just a really quick story. Had a conversation with a lady one time that was recommended to me. I had a lot of business coaching clients, and many of them were looking for some admin help, but they didn't have enough work to get a full-time admin person. So I found a virtual assistant that had been highly recommended. Lots of the people that had worked with her had thought she was really good. Sit down for a meeting with her, and I'm interested in finding out about her business. And I framed with her. I said, look, I've got about 3 or 4 clients that are looking for some help, and I'd really like to be able to recommend you. And I just need to know a bit more about how you do things with your clients, etc. And long story short was, we spent about 45 minutes talking. Everything seemed quite good. I started to ask her about her pricing structure, all of that, and she avoided the conversation about 3 times about money. And I said, look, I'm really sorry. Is there any particular reason you don't want to tell me about your pricing model? Because I'd like to recommend you, and I'm starting to actually lose my confidence in the fact that you can deliver what I'm asking for. And, I take my reputation pretty seriously. And if I'm going to put you forward to my clients, then I need to have the confidence that you can deliver, because my recommendation goes with my reputation as well. And she says, oh, well, I'd need to talk to them directly to figure out, what they need and to come up with something for them. And that hesitation in her tonality, the hesitation in the fact that she wasn't willing to commit to anything to me, actually lost my confidence completely in that moment. And a friend of mine once told me I had more front than Myers, which, for some of our international listeners probably won't make all that much sense, but it's a major department store that has a big shop front, and it means that you have a lot of front in the way that you talk to people, like you're ballsy. And so I said to her, I said, look, can I give you some feedback? Would that be okay? Would you like some feedback about your sales process? And I shared with her my reservations about what was happening in her business and what happened in that communication. I said, how is it going financially in terms of how many new clients you're getting on board, and, are you getting everything that you want? And she says, no, it's not going very well. The clients come few and far between, and, I find it quite difficult to do sales. And I said, well, what is it about sales that's challenging? And she says, well, I actually think that sales is manipulative. And I thought to myself, well, isn't that interesting? So on the one sense, she's very passionate about serving her clients, and yet she's unwilling to ask for the business. And that unwillingness to ask for the business actually lost me the confidence that I did have in her ability to deliver the outcome. And I'm sure you see that all the time with some of the people that you talk to as well, Nathaniel. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, it's really important to have a think about those things for yourself. And if you haven't got, a bulletproof confidence in what it is that you're doing, then you really need to have a look at your principles for success. So these are my top 5 tips for you in terms of making sure that you have a bulletproof kind of attitude as far as success in your business and sales and closing. So know your outcome or result in every interaction. Before you pick up the phone, know what it is that you want to hang up the phone with in terms of a tangible result. Is it an appointment? Do you want to seal the deal? What do you want to get out of that interaction? Always know what your outcome or your result is, because that determines your focus. And believe it or not, it actually will change your confidence in your tonality and the way that the words come to you in the order and sequence that they need to. The next thing is to take action. There's nothing worse than hearing from, people who are working really hard to get you all the leads and to get that interest in your business, to know that those leads are sitting in your inbox uncontacted for 3 months, and then you want to go back to the person who generated the leads for you and tell them that the lead generation is not working. You must take action. You need to contact your people, and you need to have an effective system to sell beyond words and make sure that you're doing your follow-up. Having that internal and external awareness about where you're at and keeping track on what you're doing. Having behavioural flexibility. What does that mean exactly? Having behavioural flexibility is about being able to know your own psychology. Unfortunately for Bob, the photocopier man, he had absolutely no behavioural flexibility, and because of his linear sales approach, he was in a situation where he was attempting to have me fit into the model of his sales process, as opposed to getting interested in what I needed and being flexible. I often use the metaphor where, if we have a pane of glass and a piece of perspex, which one would be stronger? And in our workshops, most people tend to answer that the glass is stronger. But in actual fact, the law of requisite variety states that if a person or a system is flexible, then it will control the system. Now, in this situation, the glass may be stronger in substance, but as soon as it gets any pressure, what's going to happen is it's going to crack and break because it's brittle and rigid, whereas the perspex can withstand different conditions, different pressures and different environments, and it'll bend and spring back into place. And you as a salesperson, in terms of your psychology and the excellence of your closing methodology, needs to be the same. So operating from that physiology and that psychology of excellence is really going to get it done. So I know that you guys have put aside this time to come here, and I certainly hope that there's been some significant value and a few aha moments for you guys, and obviously being on the call. And Nathaniel, thank you for inviting me to do this. And as a result of him inviting me to do this, I was made to promise that I would provide some additional value for you guys and make sure that there was something that you could take away from this that would enable you to, continue the journey and to continue to make things happen. And so I've got a gift for you guys, a really great gift. It's a tool that we use, we give to all of our clients, which is the Make 10 Appointments with Hungry Buyers this week. This is a set of steps, a sequence of steps that will enable you to uncover and to start to work through some of those psychology elements of the sales process and how you can really nail that process for getting in front of people and having the opportunity to ask those good quality questions, to really get connected with what is the value that the client is looking for, and how you can link that to what you're doing with your sales process, with your product or service. So all you need to do is click on that link right there and pop in your details, and we'll send that to you directly to your inbox. It's an e-tool you can get online and seriously make 10 appointments. By following those steps, you can make those 10 appointments with the Hungry Buyers this week. And so if you've already got some fantastic leads sitting there and you want to know what to do with them so that you can start to convert them, then this is the tool that's really going to help you start the next step of the process and really start to get that 80-20 psychology strategy system right. And of course, I would love to be able to talk to you directly and work through a discovery session with you. So for the first 20 people to register for that tool, I'm giving away a 30-minute discovery session so that you can actually have a one-on-one session with me. We'll go through what is the blocks at the moment. Let's get clear if you're getting the most out of your niche, and do you have the right message? What is your system to sell beyond words, and how can we get you on a plan so that you can really utilize the free gift and also making sure that you're really taking action and closing those sales that you want to close. So I'd love to talk to you guys. I'm looking forward to connecting with you, especially the first 20 that are wanting to register for that discovery session. And I know that we'll be able to increase your closing ratio just by getting that strategy and that psychology totally nailed. So thank you so much. I want to say thank you so much to Nathaniel for having me online, and thanks you guys for your time and attention. Is there any questions? Is there anything you'd like to add?
That's been fantastic. I think everyone would have found a lot of value in that, and so thank you for putting aside the time to contribute that, and we really appreciate giving that extra value with those 20 one-on-one sessions. I'm sure that'll be really valuable for the first 20 to get on there. Guys, we've got a lot of people on the call today, so we'll need to be quick to be one of those 20. So the link again is confidentclosing.com.au /make-10-APPTS. So jot that down and get across to there today. And thank you very much, Chandell, for being here today. If anyone would like to find out more information about what Chandell does, they can go to lifepuzzle.com.au, and we'll be in touch shortly with the webinar recording, which you'll be able to watch for the next 48 hours online. So thanks again, and everybody have a good day.
Hey, thanks, Nathaniel. Thanks, everybody. All the best, and keep confident closing.